Hello, I'm not very well, so apologies for the way I sound. I wanted to talk about the male loneliness epidemic, and solely because I just saw this tweet that I thought summed it up really well. I would like to quickly just make it clear. How do I say this in the nicest way possible? I do believe men suffer from mental health issues. I believe everyone suffers from mental health issues. I'm not trying to minimize mental health issues, but I do believe that mental health issues are separate from the male loneliness epidemic, and I'm not trying to intertwine them in this episode. So if you hear me saying something and you think it sounds harsh and you think it applies to you because you're suffering from mental health issues, because I think a lot of it is quite interlinked. In this case, it is absolutely not interlinked. So please don't confuse that. I'm not taking away from personal struggles. This is more of a collective struggle. I say struggle, I don't know. So if you are struggling with anything and you think I'm being a bitch, I'm not. I'm not talking about you and your individual struggles. So I saw this tweet and it said, it was basically saying about how, I'm going to read it actually. Men are lonely because they're insufferable to be around. For one of the first times in history, women don't need men for any material security. While there is still social pressure, women are only seeking romantic relationships with men for the emotional enrichment those men would bring to their lives. We no longer need men. They are competing solely on the basis of their character and they're failing, and that's their fault, not women's and not feminism's. And the top comment on this post, which it just sparked me to make this episode. Oh my God. Get out. Sorry about that. My dog is feral at the minute. So the top comment is, all they do is complain about our presence, and when we remove ourselves, they complain about that. And that, when I saw that, I just thought, oh my God, so accurate. Because I think, so my stance on men and their current situation, I'm so sorry about my dog. She is being very loud and I'm going to go upstairs. As you can tell, I don't have a studio that I record in. I just talk into my phone. So sorry about that. So I'm trying to think about ways that I can speak about this without just coming across like a complete misandrist, even though I sometimes think that I am a bit of a misandrist. But I think a lot of the issues surrounding... Also, I'd just like to preface this by saying I'm not educated in this. I do not have a degree in feminist literature or the political state of the world. So this is just me speaking from the heart. I'm not using sources or references or trying to use big words to sound fancy. I'm just giving my opinion. So please do not say you're uneducated. Yes, correct. I mean, you can say that, but please don't spurt this thinking that I'm thinking that I'm the smartest person in the room, because I do not think that. So I think this whole point about men being so valuable throughout all of history and now not really being valued at all is the main crux of the issue. This is, I think, where they're freaking out, right? And I can understand as a man, well, I can't understand being a man, but hypothetically, being a man, and throughout all of history, you've been at the top. You've been important, you've been necessary, you've also been physically stronger, you've been in charge of making decisions, you can have multiple wives if you want. You basically do whatever you want, that is the way it is. And I would say in the last 20 to 40 years, perhaps, maybe, I don't know about the exact time frame of when this shift started. I do think it's been a gradual change, maybe since the breakdown of the traditional nuclear family. So maybe that's like what, the 70s, 80s, that more women started joining the workforce. I think men aren't as... I don't like the word important. I don't think that's the right word. For women, men have always been a necessity, right? We couldn't buy our own land. We couldn't open our own bank accounts. We couldn't, I don't know, procreate without a man. Like, you can't, like that. Like, they were important in a lot of avenues of our lives. But that was primarily because men took away those rights from us initially to begin with, you know? Like, we weren't allowed to vote because a man said so. We weren't allowed to own land because a man said so. Like, a lot of these constructs, and this is that whole thing about, and who set that system up? You know, like, people say that whole, like, internet trend thing. Like, these constructs were founded by men. And I think one of the main issues, and one of the reasons that men now, in current day, are getting upset, is because they are saying, well, I didn't set that system up. I didn't do that. I didn't decide that you can't vote. And I can understand why it's frustrating for a man who basically has to bear the burden for their ancestors' behaviour. Right? And I understand, obviously, if you're a person of colour, it wasn't your ancestors. I get that. Like, you need to just think in the broader spectrum of things right now. Like, I think another thing that men like to do is make everything very personal. Like, they call women reactive. I'm not saying women aren't reactive at times, but I think men are very reactive. And everything is like, there's no nuance or context. Like, if I say, you know, ancestors, they'll be like, well, my ancestors didn't do that. And like, I get, yes, but you're not reading into the larger zeitgeist of the picture. Like, it's like when you say not all men, right? You know, well, not all men. It's like, no one said all men, but like, you trying to distance yourself and separate yourself from this is fundamentally ignoring your privilege. And I think that's why women get angry when men do the whole, well, it's not me and I didn't. It's like going, okay, this is like a weird analogy, but it's like walking into a murder case trial that you had absolutely nothing to do with, apart from the fact that you're the same gender as the person that's being put on stand, and saying, I didn't do it. Stop accusing me of it. I didn't do anything. And it's like, what are you, like, okay, like, I don't know, what do you want me to say? Like, and it's this weird, I think men have this deep-seated feeling that they're feared, you know? And they are. I'm so scared of men. They petrify me. However, I use my best instincts, you know? I have a lot of very close male friends. I've had boyfriends. There are men in my life, you know, like, I am petrified of men, but I can pretty, you know, clearly tell when I meet one. For the most part, I would like to say I do get pranked sometimes. But for the most part, I can tell if I think you want to chop my head off. Do you know what I mean? Like, like sometimes it's obvious. And I would say 9 times out of 10, the men that kind of go around and spurt this whole, well, it's not me, it actually usually is. And I don't know if anyone has seen You, the series on Netflix, but the guy, basically, he's a killer. I don't know, look it up. He is so convinced that he isn't doing anything wrong, and he is so convinced that his behaviour is in everyone else's best interest, and that it's everyone else's fault. Like, he's the victim. And I think this is actually, honestly, a very good show in terms of trauma cycles, trauma bonding, like victim complexes, toxic masculinity. I think the deeper meanings of the show are actually very well executed. And I recommend it to anyone ever, really. I actually really like that show. Yeah, I just think that, like, and don't get me wrong, right? And I'm not one to stand up for or defend a man, but I can understand if your whole life growing up, you've been promised, you know, you're going to marry a woman, she's going to she's going to give you children, you're going to provide for her, she's going to give you emotional support, you're going to go off and cheat on the weekends if you so wish. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, if that's what you've been sold from media, from your family, from your friends, I'm not saying, the fact that I even have to keep, like, giving this disclaimer is pissing me off. No more disclaimers. Use your fucking nuance. If it doesn't apply, don't take it. Yeah, it's like, if that's what's been sold to you from your conception, I can understand why the men of today feel like they've drawn a short straw, because they've been promised everything. And, you know, then we as women have kind of banded together and been like, like, no, like, I don't want that. You're not giving me anything. Like, you don't provide me anything. And someone said to me the other day, they were like, oh, you know, why don't you have a boyfriend? And I was like, well, because everything that I could do with a boyfriend, obviously apart from, like, I don't know, let's not talk about that. But, like, I can do all those things with a friend. Like, if I want to go for food, I can go for food with a friend. If I want to have a deep intellectual conversation, I can have that with family members or with friends. Like, I can, all of those things. And, like, also, I'm going to, like, I know it's kind of awkward to talk about, but, like, sex isn't that important, I think, to a lot of women. Like, it's not, it just doesn't matter. And I think, like, this is what I mean when I say everything that I could do in a relationship, I can do with a friend, because it, like, and as well, I often feel I have a better connection with my friends. Like, they understand me more. It's very rare that I have one man in my life that is, like, I think completely understands me. And we've been friends for a very, very, very long time. And it's taken us a long time to get to where we are right now. You know? Like, it's like a friendship built over time. And I just think, but if you look at our relationships, they aren't anything. Like, I just think it's so much easier to just have a friend and just be friends with someone. And there's not this pressure or this expectation and this whole, like, ooh, you know, like, do you commit? Do you whatever? Like, it's so long. And, you know, I know there's that whole movement online about decentering men. And I made a few podcasts last summer, I think it was last summer, about how I was kind of going on this, like, decentering men journey, and about how, like, the feeling of the need to perform for men. And if you've not listened to any of my podcasts, you probably think you're a fucking sad bitch. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? But this is honestly a very normal female experience based on the system that we have been sort of, like, indoctrinated into. Like, it's like the kind of, I don't know, the performer and the watcher, you know, like, women are to perform. Women are the flowers and men are the bees, you know, like, women are meant to look flowery and pretty and be, like, all these, like, things, and men are meant to come and take it and claim it or whatever. Like, that is, like, systematically how it works, except not really anymore. And I know this is also, I just want to say, I'm sorry, this is so, like, jumpy and not coherent at all, and there's no continuity in this episode, and I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get all my thoughts out, so I'm sorry if it's giving you a hard time. I also think that we need to talk about work, like, women working, right? So obviously, I think one of the primary reasons women don't marry anymore is because we don't need your financial security. I, you know, make my own money. I have my own things. I own my own assets. You know, like, everything I have either given myself or my mum's bought for me. Like, my dad's not in the picture, so maybe, again, like that might give you another layer of context. So, you know, anything that's ever been given to me has been given to me by a woman. And I was looking, I might have said this before in an episode, but I used to go to therapy. My therapist was a woman, and I was talking to her about how I genuinely believe I have never learned anything from a man. And she was like, well, that's not true. You know, you would have had male teachers in school, and you would have watched videos, and, you know, like, even think of, like, David Attenborough. He's taught you things, like, I don't know, things like that, right? And then I was thinking, okay, so it's not that I've never learned anything from a man. It's that I've never learned anything from a man that a woman couldn't explain to me easier, quicker, and in a way that was more digestible. And I think the takeaway that I took from that last year was that anything a man can do, women have been conditioned to do in a way that is more digestible. And whether that's communication, we've been conditioned to communicate in a way that is easy for you to understand, comforting, non-aggressive, non-threatening, you know, more creatively, like, we communicate more creatively. Whereas men, I think, can typically be more dogmatic and like fact-based, which is sometimes harder to, I don't know, like, take in. And I also think that, you know, women, that we are just, I think that we have been trained from this young age to be the aid, right? We've been trained to be the help, like the support. Again, like, I said I didn't want to make any more, like, disclaimers, but I know saying the help is, like, typically associated with race, and I can only imagine, like, how that could make someone feel, me using words like that. So I don't mean to make it sound like that, but what I mean is that I just think that women, and especially this is why I think women of colour are so, like, because I'm pretty sure it's like, I think women of colour make up, like, a very large percentage of people in unis, you know? Like, they have learnt to be independent. And I think a lot of that comes from their ancestry and being, you know, they had to do all this for all these other people, and, like, you know, they were put into slavery and put into all these different things because, you know, they had no voice and they had no access to resources to be able to get out of those situations. And I do think this is important, actually, to discuss. And it's you can hear that I don't know what to say because I'm not qualified in speaking about this. I don't want to say something that is minimising struggle, you know? And also, I know that the demeanour of this podcast is... I know I have quite, like, a conversational tone, and I don't want to come across as like, I'm just, like, throwing these conversations around, like, they're lighthearted. Like, I don't really care about the male loneliness epidemic, but what I do care about is slavery. So I think bringing that into the conversation adds, like, a layer of depth. I think I'd be doing myself a disservice, well, not just myself, but a lot of other people a disservice if I didn't speak about it, just because it makes me uncomfortable, because I'm not educated enough. But I think this is why a large majority of women of colour go to university and get good degrees and work in corporate and, you know, want to, like, make their own money and do their own things, is because in their ancestry and things that have happened to their family lines, they didn't have the opportunity to do that. So it's like now they're taking that back. It's like reclaiming that power, you know? And I think in moving away from the racial part of this, just into the broader, like, women section, we are taught, you know, to look after others, to care for other people, and men aren't really taught that. And it's funny because I remember when I was younger, I was on holiday and I met this guy and he was like, "You're gonna have kids?" I was like, "No, I don't want kids." And he was like, you're a woman, you have a maternal instinct, it's like your job to have kids. And I remember just thinking, like, What? Like, you're such a misogynist. Like, and don't get me wrong, like, I understand that male and female hormonal systems work differently, and that women probably do have sort of predisposed, I don't know what the word would be, like, connection to children because we create children, you know? So I understand that. I'm not taking that away. However, I do think that it's like how much of it is predetermined or predisposed and how much of it is conditioning, because from children we're given dolls and we're given, like, you know, I've spoken about canalization a lot on this podcast, and it's, if you don't know what canalization is, it's basically, it's a sociological term about when a child is born, even before the child is born. I can't remember who coined it, but basically from the minute that you are in the womb, you are treated differently based on whichever gender you are. So, you know, the colour that your room is painted, and people are more likely to be rougher with a boy baby than a girl baby because they think the boy baby can handle it. And, you know, the type of toys that you buy your child and the activities that you do with your child as they start to grow up, like things like that, that is canalization. And I honestly think that as much as hormones are real, that's such a weird sentence. But as much as like hormones, obviously, I'm so sorry, I'm so snotty. As much as hormones do play a part in things like that, like, surely there is going to be some kind of shift in the way that your hormones are produced, because isn't it, you know, like an addict, right? If they're aware that the drugs are running out, they start to produce stress hormones. That's a conditioned response. So surely over, you know, years and years and years of conditioning from being a baby, we've been conditioned into male and female hormone responses. And I think, honestly, I didn't mean for this to get so like political, but, you know, it's important. That, I think, is why a lot of, because I honestly think, actually, I'm going to be real, right? If you're a woman and you're like against trans people, what the fuck are you doing? Because I don't understand how you, the main part about being a woman is that we band together, right? You know, like girl power and all that. I think it's so important. And men have this very like individualistic mindset. They see everyone as like competition. And I think one thing that I love about women is that we collectively come together a lot, and we, you know, start movements a lot. And I do believe women are natural born leaders, because I've never worked a project in school or college or uni or any part of my life. I've never had a boss that's a man. That, you know, I've never worked a project in uni, sorry, I'm like combining 2 points in once, where a boy took the lead. They always just sat back and took credit for everyone else's work. And, you know, I've never had a boss that was a man that was efficient. Like, it's honestly like they're not. And I think women, being these natural born leaders, we're not afraid to collaborate, because, and I think that's the reason men are so afraid to collaborate, because they're like, well, I need to prove that I am so masculine. And it's like, well, if you actually were, you wouldn't need to prove it, you know? And I'm getting there. I am getting there. Sorry, just let me circle back round with my point. I really think if you are against trans people or anything that's gone on, if you're not from England, because I know like a large portion of people that listen to me are not from England, a bill or law has just been passed basically that is like just like stripping trans people of a lot of their rights. It's fucked. Look into it. It's horrible. I'm not going to get into it because it's worthy of its own episode, and I would also like to educate myself a lot more before I speak on that. But back to my original point. If you're a woman and you aren't in support of that, I honestly think you're doing yourself a disservice, because I think, there's men, there's women, and then there's like, intersex, right? And I think intersex is like a recognized group of people, like they are born that way. And I think this is why I'm getting there. I'm sorry, it's taken me a while. This is why canalization and I believe hormones and I don't know, like conditioning and media hate trans people, because they don't fit. Those systems don't work on them. You can't gender affirm someone if you don't know their gender. And we don't like it. I like it, but a lot of men specifically, and some women, but I don't like them, and I don't claim them. They don't like it when they can't tell you what you are. And if that doesn't fit into their box of like neatness and predetermined expectations, and you look like this, so you're going to behave like this, and you wear this, so you're going to behave like this, and it makes things easier for the brain to understand if your brain's not very well developed, right? And the more developed your brain is, the more you are able to understand more sort of abstract constructs, right? You look at someone and they might have a mixture of male and female attributes. And if you are sort of more developed as a person, you can understand that is fine. That is like, it's not even fine. It's just, it is, And I think this is the thing with gender neutrality, is like, it just is. That's just the way it is. And I don't get why men, it is a lot of times men, because I very rarely meet a woman who is transphobic. And if you are one of those, fuck off. I don't want to talk to you. Don't listen. This isn't for you. I just don't understand why they are so active in making it an issue when it's not. It's just, if you're born intersex and you're happy to stay that way, fine. If you're born a man and you want to become a woman, fine. Like, I don't care. I couldn't explain to you how little it matters to me. The only thing that matters is that you have resources, you're safe, and you're not being discriminated against. Like, the fuck? I don't care. Like, I don't know. One of my friends the other day, he was talking about, so he's bi, and he was talking about when he came out as bi, and I was like, I was like, I don't mean to minimise what you're going through, but I actually just, like, I don't care. And that doesn't mean that I don't care about the ways that it's affected you, the trauma that it's had on you, and the ways that, like, you've navigated life differently. I care about that. I care about your lived experience, but I don't care that you're gay. Like, it doesn't, like, I don't care anything. Like, it doesn't matter to me how you present. It doesn't matter, like... And it's the same goes for race. And, like, I know this isn't, like, a race discussion, but this is, like, I think a thing. And it's not me trying to be like, I don't see colour. Because, like, well, I kind of, like, made that point, it's not about the experience that you've lived. It's just about who you are. Like, and I think this is one thing that I've never understood, why men place such an importance on the identifiable attributes. It's like, well, what's their ethnicity? Where do they come from? Or are they trans? Or are they this? Are they that? It's like men seem to care so much about the labels. It's always about the labels. And I don't get that, because, I could identify as whatever and I could still be a cunt. Sorry, mum. I know you don't like that word. But, like, there's no saying that you can be any kind of... I remember, right? This is so niche and, like, off topic. There was this program in secondary school called Sadie J. And there was this girl who was, like, the local bitch. She was horrible. And I remember everyone was, like, being mean to her because she was a horrible character. She was jarring. And then they found out she was in a wheelchair, and they started being nice to her. And I remember being like, what? Like, I don't care. Like, if you're not a nice person, you're not a nice person. Like, it doesn't matter what life experience you've held. And the same goes the other way. Like, if you're a nice person, it doesn't matter. Like, this is what I was saying earlier. Like, if you're a man and you're nice, I'll like you. But, like, maybe you're just not as nice as you think you are. And that's why I don't like you. But that's not my fault. Like, stop blaming me for the fact that, like, you can't see yourself clearly. And I honestly think, like, going back to my point earlier, this is literally the most fucked podcast I've ever made. Like, my brain is jumping back and forwards like a yo-yo. Going back to the point I was making earlier about how people like to put people in a box. I honestly think that the reason that this male loneliness epidemic is so, like, like, not taken seriously is it's because, you know, we became what you wanted, then you didn't want us. Then we changed, you just still didn't like it. You know, we've constantly evolved with the times. Not good enough. More. You want more. And then I think it's got to a point collectively, and I think that in the rise of the internet has helped us band together as women. And we've been like, all right, fine, you know, fucking please yourselves then. You know, go off and chat to your AI, like, sex dolls or whatever, like, do you, because we, like, you know, no matter what we do, you will always find a reason to be like, oh, fucking women. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no end in sight. And I think we do that, and then it's like, you've abandoned us. And it's like, I really think a lot of this male loneliness epidemic would be shifted if men could just hold the fucking mirror up. Like, I see this quite often of, like, men commenting on women's bodies and what they choose to do and whatever, and it's like, women in the comments are like, you're literally, like, unemployed, ugly, fat, single, still live at home. Like, not that there's anything inherently wrong with any of those things. You can be all of those things and still be a nice person. Like, this is the thing, is like, who told you that you're qualified to come out and speak about a group of women or a singular woman or whatever? Like, what makes you think that you're qualified to do that? And again, it's like, I'm not saying because you're fat and you're ugly and you're, you know, unemployed and that you live at home, that makes you any less worthy. That doesn't make you any less worthy. But it makes you less worthy of commenting on someone else. Even if you were rich, you know, hot, made £1 million a year and, you know, were the coolest, most amazingest person ever, you still shouldn't be commenting on women's bodies and doing all those things. Like, I don't understand why they feel such an entitlement. And I think maybe it is because of these years of conditioning and, you know, the whole, like, flower and the bee thing. Like, we have performed for men. We have put ourselves open to scrutiny from men and discussions from men. And, you know, like all those TikToks are so cringe. It's like, what do men like in a woman? And it's like, we used to, I mean, still a lot of women still do. Like, it is very much etched in us, right? But, like, our whole livelihood for hundreds, thousands of years was to perform to get the best man you could to be secure. That was, like, that was how we did it. And there was nothing wrong with that because that was the system, you know? But it's like, we've evolved. I mean, I say there was nothing wrong with it. Obviously, there was a shitload wrong with it. But in terms of, like, we were just trying to survive and not be, like, beggars on the street, okay? That was the goal, to not be homeless and, like, desolate and be called a spinster. Not that there's anything wrong with that either, but, you know, it's such a nuanced topic because it encompasses everything. It encompasses race, age, gender, sexuality, discrimination. Like, this is such a sociological topic, and I wish that I took sociology as a degree now. Actually, I liked my degree, but I just really think that it's such a deep, complex topic, and it's, like, so overshadowed by men just being like, I'm lonely. It's like, but why? Like, have you thought about why you're lonely? Because, you know, it's like, it's almost like they're going through the 5 stages of grief. It's like they're either angry at us, they're, like, lonely and they're depressed, they're, like, I can't remember what the 5 stages of grief are, they're sad. Like, there's, you know, and hopefully we'll get through all of them, then we'll get to acceptance, and that will become, you know, the norm, that
we don't owe men anything, because I do think that inherently men think that we owe them something, or that we belong to them, or we're theirs to take. And I really hope that that's not going to last forever. I think my brain switched off now, and I just want to say, like, I'm so sorry, because I think I got so close on the pinnacle of like exploding on so many points and good points, and then my brain would just take me in another direction. And like, I don't know, the ADHD is clearly working hard today. But thank you for listening. I think this could be maybe the start of a bigger series that I do or something. I'm not sure. We'll see. But I really appreciate it. This is a topic that is very important to me. As a feminist, we should all be feminists. I really think that. But I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you so much. Love you. Goodbye.